No spin, no bias, no censorship. I'm Dan Wootton. This is a special edition of Outspoken. Today is 5 years since Prince Harry and Meghan Markle revealed they were leaving the royal family. Although actually, I scuppered their plans a little bit. So today, we're going to look back at what I believe has become one of the biggest disasters in royal history with the incomparable Lady Colin Campbell. Please click and subscribe to our brand new independent news source. Turn on the notification bell, then you'll be alerted to our brand new live shows, uncancelled interviews, and special royal episodes with Lady C. The best way to support Outspoken is by subscribing to a monthly paid membership for access to the uncancelled after show, which returns Monday to Friday next week. You'll also get my exclusive reporting and columns, access to our live chats on the Substack app, and the chance to join a thriving community. Most importantly, it's a safe space, no censorship. You know I'm all about that, and your support from just £5 a month gives you that 30 minutes of extra content on weekdays, but most importantly, it allows me to keep doing this. However, I have to stress, you can sign up completely for free. That allows us to keep the relationship going. www.outspoken.live. Join the independent media revolution. But now, let's go. So, Lady C, great to have you. Happy New Year, by the way. Happy New Year. Here's to a big, positive, thriving 2025. And I'm so delighted to have you back as part of Outspoken. But I have to say, Lady C, this time 5 years ago, I was feeling pretty nervous because I had received this tip-off when I was on holiday in New Zealand on Boxing Day in 2019. Where I was told by a very, very good source that Harry and Meghan had made this decision and had communicated with Prince Charles, he was Prince Charles at the time, that they wanted to leave the royal family but have this half-in, half-out relationship. And I did what a journalist does, which is find out exactly what's true, corroborate the story with numerous sources. But my editor, because I was executive editor at The Sun, but my editor, a guy called Tony Gallagher, who's now the editor of the Times of London, said to me, Dan, amazing, but I'm not going to run this story unless you get it confirmed. So I had to go to Harry and Meghan's people. And that set off a chain of events which resulted in them actually going to the Queen and saying, we want to announce this ourselves because we want to scupper the Sun from running the story. So it was very, very nervous time because obviously this was a very big story, but we did run our front page, we're off, and a lot of the details in that story, Lady C, stand. I revealed that Harry and Meghan were prepared to give up their royal titles, that they were going to go to Canada, although of course that was obviously just really a stopgap measure because in March 2020, I then revealed that Hollywood, here we come. And then after I ran the story, they posted their botched announcement on Instagram, which tried to really bribe the Queen and King Charles into giving them exactly what they wanted, a terrible way to negotiate with someone who's such a respected figure. But the next day, we ran the headline, which I think has become most famous around the world, Megxit, inventing this term, which would go on to be included as one of the new words of the year in the Collins Dictionary for 2020. But it's really interesting, Lady C, isn't it, looking back, because Harry and Meghan really did think that they were going to really blackball the Queen into doing something that she had no intention of doing.
Oh, yes. It was their objective. Well, it was Meghan's objective, and Harry went along with it, that she would lay down the law to the Queen, and the Queen would have absolutely no choice but to go along with it. And remember, Dan, this had been in the planning for some considerable length of time, because they had, and really they is Meghan, because Harry doesn't have the brain power or the discipline, had created the Royal Sussex website and had trademarked absolutely everything, including Tampax with the royal cipher on it, sort of thing. I mean, if they had trademarked hundreds of items that they would be flogging via this royal website. And so this had been in the planning for some considerable length of time. And the Lord Land King of Arms, on behalf of the Queen, thwarted it by saying you can't be half in and half out. Well, that was directly from the Queen. And Harry would like the world to believe that when the Lord Lion, or Sir Edward, as he then was, who was her private secretary, said something that they were hijacking the Queen, and the Queen really wanted to encourage Harry and Meghan to do everything that they wanted to do, which of course was utter rubbish. But Meghan really thought that if she laid down the law to the Queen and strong-jawed her, that the Queen was going to relent. And she's very manipulative, and it really was defiant, and it was laying down the gauntlet. It was a form of blackmail that she hoped the Queen would allow. And of course, the Queen didn't allow it.
No, because this announcement on their own Sussex Royal page, Lady C, was completely intellectually dishonest. Because look at the top line, Lady C. After many months of reflection and internal discussions, we have chosen to make a transition this year and starting to carve out a progressive new role within the institution. We intend to step back as senior members of the royal family and work to become financially independent while continuing to support Her Majesty the Queen. Now, the first words of that statement are a lie. Harry and Meghan may have been reflecting, but Lady C, there had not been many months of internal discussions. That's intellectually dishonest. The internal discussions were over Harry and Meghan remaining full-time members of the royal family, but perhaps relocating for a significant chunk of the year to South Africa, New Zealand, Australia. Canada may have been mentioned, but it was as a formal member of the royal family. I mean, there were even talks of could Harry become the Governor General of Australia, for example. They were the internal discussions. Now, what Harry and Meghan did, and this is so despicable, is they launched their own money-making operation even when they were members of the royal family. Meghan had all of her staff who had pretty much stayed working for her behind the scenes, negotiating book deals, starting talks with Netflix while they were a member of the royal family. So to suggest that somehow the late Queen and King Charles had been involved in these discussions was wrong. The discussions had been about something altogether different, and Harry and Meghan really did sabotage and ambush the monarch.
Well, my view on it has always been that the talks involving them spending a lot of time in a Commonwealth country was always a red herring and a distraction. It was effectively a con. They were conning the palace into believe in, they were soft soaping the palace as well, and they were conditioning them to the fact that something isn't quite right and we're not really happy, and we would like to do something else for you, when really they meant we are going to lead you to believe we want to do something for you within the institution, when in fact all along the plan was to do it for me, not you, and to do it for themselves outside of the institution. And they, it was a con. It was deception of the frankest kind. And but Harry understood, and Meghan, for all her claims that she didn't really understand the royal way, she understood it well enough to know that if she played the "we'll be in the Commonwealth" card, and we'll be doing our royal duties there, that would open the door, and then they would pick them at the post with, "Well, actually, we've changed our minds, and really it shows a degree of not only dishonesty but naivety, that and it shows to what extent Meghan truly believes that she is cleverer than she is, and she can dupe anybody, because this had to have been her idea, although he obviously had input, because he's the one who understood how the system works in a far more effective way than she would have understood it. So he was giving her the benefit of his knowledge, but she, I'm sure, was the architect of the whole deception. And it was a con, and it was a con that was going to that was at the 99th hour. It's a con artist's trick. At the 99th hour, you pull something else, and all of a sudden you've achieved your objective. But it didn't work. But that doesn't mean they didn't set it up for it to work. I think their behavior suggests dishonesty from the word go. And it suggests to me that she was behind it, not Harry.
Absolutely. And the thing that is incredibly shocking, Lady C, is some of the pathetic reasons that they tried to justify Megxit, which, let's be honest, was always about money. That's what it was about. And it was about Meghan not having to work. But actually, in my initial story on this, and remember, this was briefed by people who were very close to Harry and Meghan, they said it has been made very clear by the institution that the Sussexes are not central to the future plan. Just look at the picture released last week of the Queen with the Prince of Wales, Duke of Cambridge, and George. But the thing is, Lady C, that was nothing to do with Harry and Meghan. That picture, that historic picture, was about showing, and there it is, what a beautiful image, which now hangs, I believe, in the National Portrait Gallery. It was about showing to the world that as the Queen enters her twilight years, which Harry and Meghan should have been aware of, but they didn't seem to give a damn about, that the line of succession is safe. And it was a historic picture showing the Queen with William, Charles, and George. For Harry and Meghan to try and turn that into some sort of personal slight against them is ridiculous.
Yes, because that was a photograph of a monarch and the three monarchs in waiting. Harry, despite Meghan's wish to be the monarch, is never going to be. Although, of course, it has been said that she has said they're one plane crash away from succeeding to the throne.
Which is terrifying.
But it's true as well, isn't it?
Yeah.
So,
which is why the late Queen never wanted Prince William to fly with his family. Certainly not in helicopters, but he did, and he still does.
Yes. Well, he is Diana's son, and he is Charles's son. And both Charles and Diana have from birth displayed very obstinate streaks. So let's just hope that that doesn't happen, because I certainly would become a Republican at that stage. I would much rather have have President Starmer than than King Henry IX and Queen Meghan the sick making first.
Very true. Very true. Now, I just want to go and look at the story that was published by me after this announcement, because I think it is worth just pointing out, Lady C, the complete outrage within the royal family for the way that Harry and Meghan had acted. So I reported that the Queen was deeply upset and Prince Charles and Prince William were incandescent with rage. That was because they rushed out a bombshell statement after their plans were exclusively revealed in The Sun, but the failure to consult other royals has triggered outrage. Now, this was the statement released by the Queen, which was incredibly terse. Discussions with the Duke and Duchess of Sussex are at an early stage. We understand their desire to take a different approach, but these are complicated issues that will take time to work through. But a senior royal source told me, Lady C, their statement was not cleared with anyone. It breaks all protocol. This is a declaration of war on the family. There is fury over how they've done this without any thought for the implications for the institution. The Queen is deeply upset. Courtiers can't believe it. There are so many unanswered questions, but they've just up and done it without a thought for anyone else. The plan was there to discuss it and work out a way that works for everyone in the family. So to suggest somehow, Lady C, that the late Queen was okay with this is just wrong. She was deeply upset.
Can I say, Dan, first of all, I thought that your breaking of the story and your coverage of it was absolutely brilliant.
Thank you.
And I know I'm not alone in thinking that. Well, I mean, basically, Meghan is a small-time operator, or as Bill Simmons said, a grifter. And I think she thought, you see, Meghan had spent her whole life pulling fast ones on people and getting away with it. And I think she thought she'd pull another fast one. And well, I'm just going to lay down the gauntlet and I'm going to embarrass them, and they're going to have no choice but to go along with what I want. And it didn't work out like that. But I think that was her aim. Meghan's aim was to outmaneuver them and embarrass them into submission. And she's actually discovered that there are not everybody is Thomas Markle Sr., who can be slapped into submission the way she did all his life, well, all her life with him. And I think the way they went about this, and I have no doubt it's hers, that she is the one who went about it, and Harry went along with it. It really, I mean, you mentioned earlier blackmail. It's even more than blackmail. It was, I'm an adept chess player and I'm gonna show you who the Queen is. Who do you think you are, you broken down 90-something-year-old white woman? I'm going to show you that I'm a proud, confident woman of color, and that color is going to trump you in this instance. And I think that had Meghan not been a woman of color, I do not think she would have had the unmitigated gall to do what she did. But I think she played the race card all along, and she thought she was going to be safe outmaneuvering them because the race card would protect her. And
Yes.
Initially it did, but it in the long run, of course, the Queen and the royal institution has known how to bide its time, and and that time will throttle her, and time has proven that it does throttle people, and it's throttling her. What do you think?
Well, I completely agree. And actually, the race card was something that Meghan had always intended to play. But I think it is just worth, before we get there, just looking a little bit more about the delusion that Harry and Meghan had in terms of what they were going to receive. So again, this is my report of Megxit, and really it does show you how delusional and self-centered they were. So I revealed the Sun has learned Harry and Meghan wish to keep Frogmore Cottage on the Windsor estate and want their security bill paid for. Frogmore Cottage was renovated recently at a cost of £2.4 million to the taxpayer, while their reported 6 bodyguards cost £600,000 a year. The pair also want to keep their titles. As the Duke and Duchess of Sussex, a royal source told me, they want to keep Frogmore and some of their staff, but no one knows how that is going to work. Most of the staff had no idea until the Sun broke the story. And they want to keep up their level of royal security. How is that going to work if they are off acting like celebrities? And then this is another really critical point, Lady C. I'd revealed the year before how the couple had quietly built up a commercial team in Hollywood, including Meghan's former business manager and PR company, Sunshine Sachs. The source added, make no mistake, Harry and Meghan intend to make a lot of money and start taking commercial deals as soon as possible. So isn't that extraordinary that they believed quite seriously that they were going to keep Frogmore Cottage, keep their security while doing all of the commercial deals?
Well, yes, but she had set up the whole thing, hadn't she?
Yes.
And she had she entered the marriage without ever giving up any of her Hollywood connections. She didn't give up her agent, she didn't give up her manager, she gave up nothing. And she obviously intended from the word go to milk the situation. Gina Nelthorpe said that ultimately she is a businesswoman and that she's guided by business and making money. And I think there's a lot of truth to that. And she obviously entered the marriage thinking, I'll be able to milk this one and make it work for me. And at what she thought she'd just have to go along with everybody for a little while, and then she'd be able to pull the rabbits out of the hat the way she'd always done. I mean, Meghan has always entered a situation with the idea that she will ultimately be able to double cross everybody, and she'll be able to put the screws in on everybody, and they will be discarded and she will emerge victorious. And this has been her modus operandi all her life. And it worked up to a point, but it hasn't worked with the royals. But I think, Dan, your revelations at the time are almost predictions of what's happened since, because you spotted everything that was going on and that was going to happen, and it has happened. The only thing is, of course, Meghan, because Harry believed that Meghan was the potent, powerful figure that she told him she was. Hence, of course, why she couldn't have her father or family around her, because then they'd have given the game away. So what Harry believed, Harry drank the Kool-Aid, and my God, was he high on it. But she thought she had it all set up, and she was going to be able to dupe everybody, and she was going to be able to implement this and implement that and implement the other. And the royal family would have no option but to relent. And, you know, but both she and Harry were naive enough to think that they would be able to have their security, notwithstanding the fact that Prince Edward and Princess Anne don't have full-time security, but Harry expected it. And and I think to that extent, Harry is party to all of this, because Harry is the one whose delusion of his extreme importance was I think he impressed Meghan with how important he was. And I think she believed that he was so important that ultimately, with a few minor adjustments, they could change everything around. So the whole royal system would work for them to make money off a platform that she really created.
Big time, big time. Then the plan, the cynical plan, kicks into gear, Lady Colin Campbell, with this interview that changed everything. But actually, it's worth thinking about, isn't it, Lady C, before the interview, how orchestrated all of this was. Meghan waited until she was heavily pregnant, but the conversations with Oprah Winfrey had been going on when Meghan was still a fully fledged member of the royal family. The narrative that Meghan was trying to feed Oprah Winfrey right from the start was that she was a victim of racism. Racism, by the way, that never was there.
Well, do you want me to comment?
Please.
Or are you going? Oh, I thought you might have been showing some of the interview.
No, please, you go ahead.
I have been in two minds as to whether Meghan decided that she needed to go down the treacherous road to perdition once the Queen thwarted her with half in, half out. I'm not sure, though, that she would not have elected to go down that route no matter what. Because remember, at the time, Black Lives Matter was a huge thing. And Meghan has never been able to resist jumping on a bandwagon, no matter what the bandwagon was. And I mean, this is a woman who passed for white for most of her life.
Well, she
And
actually was Caucasian when she defined herself. I mean, on her acting resume, she described herself as Caucasian.
And she made sure that she eradicated every sign of her African heritage with plastic surgery and beauty treatments and hair straightening, etc. So she really was a race denier. But once it became useful, and I mean, she played the race card, if you remember, from having orchestrated the situation so that when she was going out with Harry and she was just a girlfriend, she was really a bonk. And she made sure that she solidified her position by being declared his official girlfriend in the Sunday Express story that broke the news of their relationship. And everything was ready in place in the United States of America that day for all the publications in the United States of America to pick up her approved line, which they did. And if you stop to think that within a week of the declaration being made that she was Harry's official girlfriend, she got Harry by threatening to leave him if he didn't protect her against racist and sexist comments. Well, she's a woman, he's a man. obviously they're going to comment on her sex, but nobody was actually commenting adversely on her race. There was the one headline in the Mail Online, which was done in the United States of America. It wasn't done in England, about Straight Out of Compton. Well, that famous actor who was in The Bodyguard, what's his name? I'd forgotten it. He
Kevin
was with
Costner.
Kevin Costner. He's Straight Out of Compton. But I mean, she used the slimmest things to because she knew that there were so many bodies buried that the press were going to discover about her. So she got Harry to get Jason
Right
North
from the
within a
start.
week. Sorry?
Right from the start.
That's right. So she played the race card the first week.
When, Lady
And
C, let's be honest about it, none of us in the media knew who this woman was. We certainly didn't judge her because of her race, because of the fact she had a black mother. I mean, it was ludicrous. And it was so desperate. I mean, do you remember that front page when Sarah Vine in the Daily Mail wrote that she had niggling doubts about Meghan Markle? Well, those niggling doubts have proved to be right. And that was turned into some sort of racism scandal. That's sick. That's sick if you can't use words in the English language. I was also criticized of the same thing because I would sometimes use the very well-known phrase whiter than white. So they were looking for reasons, and you're right. Straight Out of Compton, which had no race connotations whatsoever, was used right from day one. And it was the only real example.
Also, let's remember, poor Rachel Johnson said that she was exotic. Well, I've been called exotic. I mean, exotic is actually a compliment. All of a sudden, it became a racist insult. But she was playing the race card from the word go. So, would she have still, if they had been allowed to be half in, half out, would she have still played the race card? I suspect there would have been no necessity to do so, but she, being the crass and vulgar opportunist that she is, she would have played it nevertheless.
But Lady C, it's very important that you mention Black Lives Matter and George Floyd, because sometimes it's easy to forget how celebrities cashed in, quite literally in many cases, on that hysteria. And in June 2020, when Meghan's plan was developing, she decided to go public. This is before the Oprah interview, of course, 9 months before the Oprah interview. She decides to go public with her own personal feelings on George Floyd. Let's watch this.
I was really nervous that I wouldn't, or that it would get picked apart. And I realized the only wrong thing to say is to say nothing. Because George Floyd's life mattered, and Breonna Taylor's life mattered, and Philando Castile's life mattered, and Tamir Rice's life mattered. And so did so many other people whose names we know and whose names we do not know. Stephon Clark, his life mattered. So the first thing I want to say to you is that I'm sorry. I am so sorry that you have to grow up in a world where this is still present. I am sorry that in a way we have not gotten the world to the place that you deserve it to be.
So this was the start, Lady C, this was the start of Meghan trying to take on an activist persona, and it was very cynical.
Meghan is one of the crassest opportunists that it has been anyone's displeasure to have to encounter. She has used not only race, she has used everything that she could. Meghan is like a sculptress who is working in clay, and she just grabs the clay, and she then twists it and turns it into whatever she thinks is going to reflect well upon herself. I mean, how is it that somebody who has done everything in her power to erase every sign of her African heritage then jumped upon the bandwagon? It's so crass. It's so obvious. And had Meghan has chooses to jump on bandwagons, which she thinks will give her approbation, and that she can then somehow spin so that she will end up being regarded as a great leader. I mean, the woman is totally out to lunch. But
Yes.
it has taken it has taken years of people seeing her jumping on bandwagons to actually realize that there is no substance there. It's not about the cause. It's Meghan jumping on causes to elevate herself. And, you know, but it's, at first, people would have thought, oh, well, let's give her the benefit of the doubt. Or, you know, yeah, she's a woman of color. She's compassionate, and except, of course, she's not. But it's taken people a while to figure that out. But in the meantime, look at the havoc she's caused. You know, at the time of that clip, I had African and West Indian diplomats coming up to me at events and complaining about Meghan and saying to me, you know, that because obviously I'm Jamaican, and you know, saying that they approved of what I was doing in terms of not allowing the race baiting to go on, because I was busy calling out Meghan as a race baiter long before most other people were.
Absolutely,
And
you were. At a time
but the diplomats in the West Indies and in Africa, who I was in contact with, and some of whom I'm still in contact with, they understood the damage she was doing in the Commonwealth. And I think it's worked its way through to a large extent. But a few years ago, the damage she did was tremendous.
Huge. Because obviously, Lady C, this all builds up, and the context. I mean, personally, I believe Meghan was planning this from her time in the royal family, but George Floyd and Black Lives Matter supercharges her plot. So in March 2021, finally the interview happens. She sits down with Oprah Winfrey and she literally invents a witch hunt within the palace over these so-called royal races. Now, we know this never happened, Lady C. Even Harry has now had to admit this was a complete figment of the imagination. But the questions that Meghan said within the palace were about whether Archie would be given a royal title and security, but also how dark his skin might be when he was born. Now, surely if there were questions about whether Archie would be given a royal title, it involves how Archie was born. It would be nothing to do with the fact that his mother was mixed race. But what do you make of her claims to Oprah, which of course were designed to inflict maximum damage on the royal family, and they were made, let's never forget this, with Prince Philip in his dying days in hospital?
Well, she, in my view, she knowingly set out I don't think her primary objective was to damage. I think her primary objective was to deify herself, glorify herself, present herself as being a victim along the lines of George Floyd and Breonna and all the others who had suffered, and their suffering was but a mere bagatelle compared to her great suffering. So I think, again, I think it's the opportunism that kicks in. But I think that she recklessly used that because she thought it was going to play well. But I actually think that she also understood in in a peculiar sort of way that if she did this, she would be focusing attention on herself. I think it was a great ploy, but you know, listen, I'm Jamaican. I come from a background where all sorts of races intermingle. And you have white Jamaicans, brown Jamaicans, black Jamaicans, yellow Jamaicans, and sometimes in a family you have all sorts of combinations. And it is perfectly normal, not even in terms of interracial marriages, but if one parent is blonde and the other is brunette, it's perfectly standard to speculate what color the child's hair is going to be, what color the child's eyes are going to be. And in a mixed race, it's perfectly normal to speculate, will the child's complexion be fairer or darker? That's not racist. That's just normal conversation. And Meghan knew only too well that Archie could not be given what she would call a royal title. She knew it only too well because he was the great-grandson of the monarch. And as the great-grandson of the monarch, he wasn't entitled to what she called a royal title. She knew this. Harry knew this. This was a total invention and a total lie on their part, in part to cover up for the fact that there is speculation that Archie was never entitled to succeed to the dukedom of Sussex. So that's what that's all about.
Indeed it was. Indeed it was. And of course, very, very quickly, this interview would backfire in spectacular fashion. And Lady C, stand by, because we're going to talk about how Megxit became the biggest disaster in royal history in just 1 minute time. So don't go anywhere. But first, you know how often I talk about the need for free speech to be protected? Well, I've been increasingly thinking of the need for personal protection from snoopers, bad actors, and hackers online. And I'm delighted to tell you I've now found the fail-safe solution. But what's more, this VPN, or virtual private network, to use the full term, is also a life changer when it comes to providing you entertainment and information from anywhere in the world, wherever you are. So let me introduce you to Surfshark, an incredible and easy to use service that encrypts all your internet traffic, meaning your online activities stay safe so you can shop, stream, browse, and conduct your banking online in complete privacy. But the benefits of Surfshark go way beyond keeping you safe online. It allows you to access your favorite entertainment news shows and channels, including to streaming services like Hulu, iPlayer, HBO Max, and Peacock. Or if your favorite show is blocked on Netflix, like Survivor for me here in the UK, or Amazon Prime or Disney Plus, within seconds you can be watching as if you're in another country. If you're traveling for work or on holiday, you can also get all your favorite content from home, including sports. And this is an insurance policy against creeping censorship in many countries like France, which has now blocked Rumble for many months. Watch anything, anytime, anywhere. It's true freedom, which I am here for. Oh, a VPN can save you money too, because you can get the best deals from websites that change their prices depending on where you're buying from. There are other benefits too. You can use Surfshark on unlimited devices. That means your entire household can stay safe with just one subscription. And with over 3,200 servers in over 100 countries, there is a world of choice at your fingertips with 24/7 customer service if this is your first time using a VPN. Go to surfshark.com/outspoken for an extra 4 months of Surfshark at an unbeatable price. What's more, Surfshark is so confident they're the best VPN in the world that you can give it a try for a full 30 days. And if you're not entirely satisfied, you'll get your money back. So that is www.surfshark.com/outspoken for an extra 4 months of Surfshark at an unbeatable price. But now, back to the show. Lady Colin Campbell, given their high hopes, Megxit soon descended into a complete disaster. A disaster reputationally and a disaster commercially. When do you think Harry and Meghan realised that things were not going to be as easy as they had planned and intended?
I think when the chickens started to come home to roost. I think at first they thought, oh, we're being very clever and everybody's going to be as fascinated with our inspection of our navels as we are. And I think at first it started well, you know, JP Morgan gave him $1 million to stand up and tell everybody how terribly hurt he was by his mother's death, blah, blah, blah. And I think the Oprah interview, they thought it was a positive. The fact that it was a negative to the royal family was of no significance to them. I think they made their deals with Netflix and Spotify, and Harry made his deal with Penguin Random House. And remember, that's supposed to be one of 4 books, not one book, one of 4 books. And I think they had all these big plans, and the press went along with a lot of it, you know.
Well, yeah, look at this from the New York Times announcing the Netflix deal. It was all very positive, but the pressure was on, right?
Everything was overblown and high flown. And you know, they had the American PR attitude, which is her attitude. Make a big claim and say, big everything up, and everybody's going to believe it. And for a while, it looked as if that was going to happen. And then they then had to produce. And this is where things have fallen flat, because neither of them has sufficient substance to deliver anything of any consequence. Okay, their personal Netflix show was of interest because they are still royal. They were trashing the royals. They were trashing everybody else. And of course, you know, people like gladiatorial shows where, you know, there's blood and guts being spilt on the floor. It's entertaining. But then comes the fallout, because that's the sort of thing you can do once and only once. There's a reason why most autobiographies or shows of this nature are done by people after a certain age, where they've lived a fairly full life, because it's a swan song. But with them, it was at the beginning of their public life in America. And I think they thought, and Meghan also with Spotify, I mean, she didn't even do most of those interviews. She only did one or two of them. The rest were done by producers, and she simply asked the questions to camera. And the delusional sort of, look how great we are and how fabulous we are, and I'm just so wonderful. Everybody's going to be as intrigued by me as I am by myself. I think it took a while for people to realize basically they're BS merchants, and and I'm afraid the S part of the BS had an odor that people didn't find appealing. And so after the ghoulish thing of, oh my God, can you believe it? The royal family was racist. Oh, actually, turns out it wasn't. So after that, things hit terra firma, and all of a sudden, people say, and no, you will know, Dan, better than most people. The one thing Hollywood does not tolerate is failure. And Harry and Meghan have turned out to be poisonous, box office poison. And everything they deliver has no substance. And everything they deliver is actually as boring as they are. The only thing that has been of interest was the Oprah interview and the Netflix series, because that was about them. No matter how awful or wonderful they were, it was about them. And I think thereafter the chickens have come home to roost.
Well, indeed. And the book. But the thing is, all of those successful projects, Lady C, did reputational damage that meant they lost their audience. They lost the trust of the people who had supported them. So it wasn't actually worth the money. It wasn't allowing them to launch a sustainable career. But the other thing that is worth pointing out with them both is, of course, their absolute chronic laziness. These two are work shy. It's why Meghan actually hated life in the royal family, because it was pretty tough. If you're Princess Anne or Sophie the Duchess of Edinburgh, you work hard as a working royal. And Spotify, they tried everything, Lady C. Do you know they even spent millions building them a studio within their house? They suggested lots of people that Harry could work for. But when I think really their reputation was shot was when Bill Simmons, who was the boss at Spotify, a very successful podcaster in his own right, and had to try and make this $20 million deal work. And remember, Lady C, for 2 years, we'd only ever had a Christmas special of something from Archibald Productions. That was it, where they sort of interviewed James Corden. It was very, very weird. And he came out publicly and said, these two are effing grifters. Now, that's not normal. That's not something that happens in Hollywood, Lady C. Like, deals in Hollywood end all the time, but they end with people releasing very fake statements about how wonderful this person is, but we've decided to go in different directions. The boss at Spotify says, no. These two are effing grifters. Then, of course, we get the Hollywood Reporter weighing in with their insight on Meghan Markle, describing her as a dictator in high heels, revealing that there had been bullying accusations by multiple staff members in California, which shot to pieces this argument that Meghan had previously made, which was that, the only reason anyone called me a bully when I was in the royal family was either because of my race or because they didn't understand my American work ethic. But no, the Hollywood folk feel exactly the same way. So at that point, Lady C, all of the sort of mystique around these two was blown up, blown to smithereens, in fact.
Reality has a wonderful way of landing after the high-flown claims of unrealistic expectations and false narratives. And that's what's happened. I thought it was very interesting that Bill Simmons came out and said what he did, because that told me that insofar as a lot of people in Hollywood were concerned, that that they were already busted flushes. But you know, Dan, I have friends in Hollywood who are, I suppose, what you'd call Hollywood royalty, you know, of a certain generation, and really very well established. And one of the things that I was told some time ago was that after Meghan and Harry went to Hollywood, and after the initial excitement, people started to think, hang on a second, this is the girl who's Thomas Markle's daughter. But for instance, George Clooney was lit by Thomas Markle. And there are all sorts of people in Hollywood who are the sort of people Meghan wanted to impress, who had had working relationships with her father. And that is a banana skin that nobody seems to be aware of, that helped to bring her downfall because of the way she has behaved towards her father. And her father was a revered and respected figure in Hollywood before her. And in fact, she's never been a revered or respected figure in Hollywood. I was told that even that it was actually a miracle that she got Suits, because she was so pushy. She'd be given a part with 2 lines as a favor to her father or to Trevor, and she'd then be chewing up everybody. Oh, I think I should have a bigger part or a better part and more lines, and some of the directors would say, oh, let's just get rid of her. So they'd build in the lines, they'd shoot them, and then never use them. So she had a reputation even before Harry of being really poisonous and difficult to work with, and too pushy for comfort. And she was nearly 40, you know, her role in Suits was coming to an end. She was never going to be the star that she hoped she would have been. She wasn't a star. She wasn't a star. She never has been a star. But so her Hollywood ambitions were already, but if you add all of that into because people were buying Harry, Meghan was a tag along, and then they realized that not only have Harry and Meghan poisoned the pot by trashing the royal family, and you know, you do that once or twice, you can't do it constantly. It's all been done, it's all been said, and it's this, their narrative doesn't add up. And I think all of that has led to the realization that everybody was over optimistic about them. And the irony is, had they been prepared to listen, and had they been prepared to take direction, they might actually have succeeded despite their lack of talent and their lack of content, because they would have had other people writing the script for them, so to speak, telling them, oh, no, you mustn't say that because it's not going to play well. You need to say something else and that will play better. And had they been amenable to suggestion, they might have been more of a success. But they, I gather, will never listen to any direction whatsoever. Both of them know better than anybody else. And when you're talentless and a know-it-all, and you won't take direction from the professionals, of course you're going to end up tanking. And they have tanked, but it's been a gradual process. It's, you know, it wasn't an overnight thing, but it started with Bill Simmons, the Hollywood Reporter, and there have been other things that have happened as well that have and people distancing themselves from them. For instance, George Clooney is just one that springs to mind.
Well, aren't they
But I think
toxic now in Hollywood, Lady C? I mean, really, the only celebrity who seemed to stay very loyal to them was Ellen DeGeneres, who has now quit the USA. And of course, she quit in shame as well, because her bullying behavior had been exposed too. The others, Oprah Winfrey, Gayle King, Clooney, as you mentioned, have all wanted to distance themselves as much as possible. They certainly don't like being seen in public because, unfortunately for Harry and Meghan, they are now considered box office bombs. And it's very difficult in Hollywood once you are sort of once you are branded and there is proof to connect you to the fact that you are toxic when it comes to box office, that you're actually going to cost companies money, it's really difficult. People don't want to touch you after that.
Well, had she been an actress who was an acknowledged actress of some stature, for instance, at one stage, Joan Crawford was regarded as box office poison. But then she did Mildred Pierce and she was restored because she had ability and she had the opportunity and she took it. But she played ball. Meghan doesn't play ball. Meghan knows it all. And Meghan doesn't have any talent. People aren't interested in listening to her pontificating about subjects and telling everybody else, well, you know, the world is in danger and therefore you mustn't travel. However, I'm going to be going everywhere in private jets. It's ridiculous. They don't have I think they are finished. Of course, if she decides to join, what's it called? The fans, what's that thing where you sort of do
Only fans.
only fans, you
know? What, that's your prediction? That's where Meghan's going to end up.
Prediction. I'm saying that would be a solution.
But I mean, look, Lady C, the reality is Megxit has been a disaster. And just finally, Harry, no matter how much he might want to deny it, he knows, doesn't he? And he knows that his wife led him up a garden path, sold him a pack of lies about how easy it was going to be, sold him a pack of lies about her talent, sold him a pack of lies about how much he was going to love working in Hollywood. And unfortunately for him, as a result, that love has gone and the honeymoon period is most certainly over. And they are now not just struggling as a couple professionally, but they are struggling personally as well. Well,
failure is always a difficult thing to cope with. And you know what they say, once poverty comes in through the window, once poverty, I think, comes in through the door, love jumps out of the window. And they have had a string of failures that they are trying to spin as successes, but they know they're failures. And I understand that he has had an element of recognition. I'm trying to choose my words carefully. He has had an element of recognition as to the realities of the situation. She basically promised him that, you know, we are so big after the Australian tour, we are so big. And they didn't realize they were being bigged up by the press as well. They really thought that it was them. And she she convinced him that they could take what their greatness to California and make a whole load of money and become effectively the emperor and empress of the rest of the world, and leave little England and the little Commonwealth to Charles and William and Catherine, and because we're going to be bigger. We have the world at our feet. They will just have a part of the world. So, and it's not worked out like that. And of course, it's not worked out like that because they didn't have the patience. Had they actually been more patient, had they not traduced the royal family, had they not cut the ground from underneath their own prestige by going on a pity fest and a poor me gluttony exercise, they would have retained the patina of respect and glamour that the royal family possess. But they chucked all of that. And they went down the C-list celebrity route. And I mean, if you stop to think what's happened recently, I mean, normally when royals attend an occasion, they are the last in, the first out, and everything's around them. Meghan and Harry are now listed at the bottom of the list with a whole load of other celebrities, and they have to fight for space. I mean, there's actually a visible sign that their royal status doesn't, it simply accords them the respect and the rank of a D-list celebrity.
Totally.
So,
totally. And that is why Megxit has been a disaster. And as you say, it didn't actually have to be. It didn't have to be. There were ways, if they'd been a little bit less greedy financially, if they'd been a little bit more classy, there were ways it could have worked. But what a fascinating deep dive, Lady Colin Campbell. Such a privilege to have you on Outspoken today. Happy New Year again. And we will speak very soon.
God bless.
But the best way to support Outspoken is by subscribing to a monthly paid membership for access to the uncancelled after show, which returns this coming Monday. I'm really looking forward to it being back. You'll also get my exclusive reporting and columns, access to our live chats on the Substack app, and the chance to join a thriving community. Most importantly, it's a safe space free of censorship, and your support from just £5 a month not only gives you 30 minutes of extra content on weekdays, it allows me to continue making this independent daily news show. All you have to do is sign up at www.outspoken.live, but you can do so completely for free as well. Now, I'm back tomorrow at 5 p.m. UK time, midday Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific. Hit subscribe if you're watching on YouTube or Rumble, and most importantly, I promise to keep fighting for you.